Hello, everybody. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. We're going to wait a few minutes to give some people time to log in or log on to Facebook for our Facebook Live event. Hopefully we'll have a lot of people joining us with questions.
This is a new way of having a meeting.
It is, yeah. We haven't done this before. Although it's always been in this room.
Okay.
Yes. We just had a few people show up, so we thought we'd give people an opportunity to join remotely.
Maybe they have to get a sandwich and then they can come back. So.
Okay, everyone get your lunch. We're going to be starting soon. Okay, well, why don't we get started? I think that's enough time. We'll let people join. We'll be here for a bit. So welcome to this Facebook Live broadcast of the Capital Corridors Business Plan for 2019 to 2021. This is your opportunity to learn more about our plans and priorities for the next couple of years. So in addition to this live broadcast, we will be hosting some public workshops on board our trains starting later this afternoon, and those will run through Friday. And the schedule is actually on our website at capitalcorridor.org. Some introductions. My name is Karen Baker of the Capital Corridors Marketing and Communications team, and I'll be the moderator for this event. Before I introduce the staff who will be doing the bulk of the presentation today, however, I'm going to go through a few logistics of our broadcast. So first of all, I wanted to let you all know that the written version of our business plan as a PDF that we'll be presenting today is available on our website. And again, that's capitalcorridor.org. You'll see a link to the business plan on the homepage. There's also the About section, which you'll see at the top of the web page. And if you go there, there's a business plan link. And we do have a news section that has an article about the business plan as well. And that will talk about the schedule for the onboard workshops as well as how to submit public comment, which is open through February 1st. So speaking of comments, during the live broadcast, we want you to feel free to include questions and comments in the actual comments section of the post. I will be reviewing the comments during this whole broadcast, and I will interrupt and sort of ask those questions of our presenters when it makes sense and as appropriate. Don't worry if we don't answer your question. All of the questions that come up today as part of this event and at all of the other onboard workshops will be made part of a public record and will be available on our website. As I mentioned before, we'll be accepting public comment through February 1st. The other thing, wanted to let you know that we will be rebroadcasting this video, this event, after today and through the end of the public comment period. And also, if something happens, which we hope it won't, we don't want to lose our Wi-Fi connection here, but if we do, just hang tight, we'll be back. Finally, the presentation shouldn't take more than half an hour or so, but it depends on how many questions we have. So hopefully people are logging on. We want to get a lot of questions today. Like I said, this is your opportunity to really be part of our planning process. We do this every year in January, and our staff will talk a little bit more about that, but it's a great opportunity to learn and ask questions. Okay, so I'm going to hand the broadcast over now to our staff, starting with Jim Allison, who is our planning manager, and he's going to be doing the bulk of the broadcast. However, he'll be assisted by Shirley Chen, who is our senior transportation planner, and also Mike Henley, who is our manager of operations.
Yes.
Operations.
Good afternoon.
Yes. So, anyway, thank you for joining us. Jim, why don't you take it over?
Take it over. Okay. Sounds
and I'll
good.
jump in if I need to.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So I'll be taking a break to get some water. I've had that little bug that's going around, so I'm healthy, guys. Don't worry. Well, thank you for joining in. This is our annual public workshop week, and we usually do this on trains, but we used to have a workshop, like she said, at the offices, and it was really difficult to get people here. So we're going to try this Facebook Live session out and see how it goes. So we do this business plan kind of around this time every year because we get public comments, we submit our comments, and this whole entire plan is a requirement of the state funding process, so the funding that we get to operate the trains. So we encourage public input during this week when we're on the trains, and like she said, you'll see the schedule on our website. So please avail yourselves of that, and we'll talk a little bit about the highlights of what's going on. It's been a very busy year in the past, and it's going to continue to be very busy moving ahead. So we have a little handout that we are going to work from that sort of summarizes the exciting parts of the business plan, and so I'll be reading from that, but that is also available on the website, correct?
It could be made available.
It could. Maybe we should do that.
Whatever you want.
We'll do that. But we read from this. It's like a little crib sheet about what's going on. So I'm going to continue on this, and you'll see this also if you're on the trains later this week. So first off, in performance for this past year, things have been going very well in terms of performance. The ridership is up. It's up about 6%. Revenue's up about 7%, and we're definitely hitting our operating targets in terms of how much fares pay for the service versus how much is subsidized by the state. What's not going as well as we would like it to have is the on-time performance. We've had some interruptions, challenges yes. over this year. Some of them related to implementing PTC, some signal outages, and we oftentimes are getting we get trespasser incidences and things like that. So we've got programs to work on all these things, and I'll go into those a bit. So the first one that I'll get into, the first one is fares. We do typically raise fares when we need to, and in this case, under board direction, we're going to be raising the multi-ride fares about 2%, and the goal of our board is to get the contribution of fares between single ride riders and multi-ride riders to about half. So to do that, we're gradually catching up on the multi-ride fares, and since I live in Sacramento, I'll be one of those people paying the new monthly prices over time. So that's one of the big questions I get. Do I get a free ticket? And I do not.
Yeah. So
I buy my ticket like everybody else. In our operating plan, things are going to stay more or less the same. We have, the relatively the same amount of train equipment, but we're trying to get a few more because we are getting crowded. The big thing that will happen is we expect to have some travel time savings. And Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about that while I get a drink of water?
Yep. So our travel time savings project has come to an end. We are going to be incorporating the travel time savings between San Jose and Fremont into our next timetable change, which is expected to be around first part of April, mid-April. And then we hope to see at least 5-minute savings within that area between San Jose and Fremont.
So that's going to roll up into the new schedule,
yep.
And you'll have a faster travel time if you're going past that section. That was a project funded by the state a couple years ago, and we worked with UP to pull that one off. And the other thing we're doing is adding more seating capacity on some select trains that rotate through the service, and that's because we're getting more and more crowded on the trains. So we're trying to monitor the capacity on the trains as we operate them, and then as we see the crowding conditions increase, we are definitely looking to offset those by getting access to some additional Amtrak bi-level fleet equipment. So you'll see a few more of those Amtrak cars out there on the rotations that go through the busier trains.
Yep, and to piggyback on that, what we've done was we've isolated the high ridership trains to a 4-day rotation. We've increased the cars on those 4-day rotations. And as our projects we'll be talking about in a few minutes here start coming up to where we need to take cars from the fleet, we will try to pretty much leave our high ridership trains alone and borrow the cars from our low ridership trains as we bring those in for HVAC and our diner overhauls.
Great. So that's kind of the biggest news. We haven't had an operating plan change with that significant of time savings in a while. But luckily, as we experience more and more crowding, we've been able to add those cars and reduce some of the crowding that we see.
So, can I interrupt here? We had a question actually about OTP, and they wanted to know what our OTP was. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what it is, what our OTP was this past year, and how it sort of trended.
We got a 90% OTP for this last fiscal year. It started off, I think, if I remember, a little bit below that, but we pulled it up with better on-time performance over time. It hasn't been as good as in years past,
right.
And we're working through those issues and trying to address some of the causes of that. And we keep a whole database. Mike has a whole database that he sees, and they manage towards those reducing those incidences as much as possible.
And with the OTP, it kind of started taking a dive there in October. We've identified issues between the bridge lift there for the Susun Martinez drawbridge. We've also identified areas as far as improvements for signals and things like that. We've had a lot of trespassers, like vehicles on tracks, things like that. We're working with the city of Oakland and other cities to kind of try to find resolution to reduce the amount of vehicles that are on tracks for our train delays we're seeing.
Well, one thing that's big for this year is the implementation of positive train control. That was mandated by a federal deadline, so it was December 31st, 2018, and we met that deadline. Had a little rough going right at first. There's a lot of technology involved with those, both in the engines and then on the track side and with servers and things like that. But we had a little bit of growing pains with those that contributed to some delays, but we're gradually learning more and more about that system, and it's running more smoothly. And that is a system that really would prevent any overspeed incidences or accidents happening, because the train will shut down if it goes above that speed curve. So that's a really important safety consideration. The other thing we're working on is a lot of what Mike is focusing on is making sure Amtrak is more on top of those security presence at the stations, and also cleaning those stations, especially the East Bay stations.
We're also working with the cities as well, as far as the stations go. We know Berkeley's kind of a hot spot recently, so we've been working with the city of Berkeley to assist with those cleanup efforts for the stations, and also Oakland.
Okay. We have, for service reliability, there's about 2 additional transportation supervisors that are going to be added to the Oakland to San Jose route.
They were already.
Oh, they were, that's right. To address some of the trespassing incidences and the service incidences, I can't say that word, that have been happening.
And on that, we've noticed a need for transportation managers between San Jose and Oakland because of the travel time to get to the incident. So you got the congestion on the highways because they are in vehicles when they drive to these incidents. So what we've done was we partnered with Amtrak, and we've funded 2 additional transportation managers, and they are now stationed, one in San Jose and then one in Oakland, to help assist with that area between San Jose and Oakland. In case we have any service disruptions, they can respond a little bit quicker than they have been, which helps the trains get back open and the tracks back open faster.
Yep. So another thing that Mike's working on is with Union Pacific. It's a right-of-way crew that we're funding, and they're addressing vegetation overgrowth, platform repairs, and adding security barriers and fences along the routes, and also removing some homeless encampments in the UP right-of-way to reduce the incidences of trespassers and dangerous conditions that we're seeing out there. And that's funded also by the SB1, the gas tax and registration fee stuff.
Yep. And on that, we're seeing a decrease in trespasser fatalities along our route, which we are attributing to the right-of-way cleanup efforts. So it's an ongoing effort.
Yeah, and I think it's a reminder to the passengers, if you see something unsafe along the right-of-way, just let us know. There are multiple ways to get in touch with us: social media, email, website. So if you see something, let us know.
Excellent. Well, when you're on the train If you're not looking out the window, you might be looking at your laptop, and you might be on our Wi-Fi system, which is reaching really its end of life. It was put in 2011, and that, in the terms of technology, that's an old system right there. So we've now worked to procure a next generation system. It should offer roughly about double the bandwidth capacity that we have today, and we'll have better service level monitoring to make sure things are operating and it's up to, performing at the highest level it can be. We've kind of taken over some of the management of that here within California, and we'll be leading a little more robust system. So it's going to be changing over the next year and a half. Shirley, you want to talk about the bike service amenities?
So, as some of you may have noticed, there are increasingly more bikes being brought on board to the trains. So, some busy trains definitely do see a shortage of onboard bicycle capacity. And so, as a solution to that, we've been working with a vendor to design and implement an angled bike rack that allows 33% more storage capacity, and we're going to be installing more of those on trains. And we are also working with a separate vendor for designing a bike storage solution for the 2 Superliner cars that are in our fleet right now. They're on loan from Amtrak, but the lower level baggage car is totally empty for bike storage right now, and we want to design something that will allow passengers to store their bike more securely. So be sure to look out for those coming on probably later in 2019.
Very good. Bikes are very popular on this corridor.
Oh, and also a reminder, there are bike lockers, secure bicycle lockers at most of our stations. So if you don't need your bike on the other end of your trip, please do please do consider storing that bike on your origin station, at your origin station. Thank you.
And we have information on our website about the e-locker program as well, so that's something that people can find in the bicycle section. You
can also go to capitalcorridor.org and look up stations, and you can have each station by amenities to see what each station has as far as amenities go.
Okay, well, I'm going to move into some of the big projects that we're working on to improve the service over time. And this first one is something that you probably won't sense, but you have to know what's going on, and that's the fuel that we're using. We've typically used petrol, diesel, and dinosaur fuel, and we're shifting into a test of using renewable diesel, which is made from more current biostock. And one of the things that we're doing with that, we're working with the California Air Resources Board to test that. But we have tested a little bit of it on the F-59 locomotive, one of the older locomotives, but these new Charger locomotives are much more sensitive, a lot more high pressure. So the Cummins, the engine manufacturer, wants to make sure that the diesel, which meets the fuel standard, it's the ASTM D975, for those of you who are fuel geeks. Anyone? No. That's a standard that meets for the fuel, but they also want to make sure that it works in that high pressure environment. So we're working on a test with them to make sure that renewable diesel will work. But the benefits of renewable diesel are that from a kind of well to wheels, since they're using current biostock, you don't have that extra release of carbon. So it's a GHG reduction move, and it's really embedded into our future capital plans as well. So that is very exciting, and we're probably going to undergo testing for about a year before we can say that that's correct, and then they take the fuel parts back, test them to make sure they work, and there wasn't any too much residue or other things like that. So thus far it's looking promising, but we will carry the test all the way through.
And also, Jim, you mentioned the F-59 locomotives. So the F-59 locomotives are our older locomotives in our fleet. We've already tested the renewable fuels in the F-59s. We saw no ill effects to any of the components within the engine. And we also saw no reduction in horsepower, which is a good thing.
Yep.
So it's very viable for the older fleet, and
yep.
we're very hopeful for the Chargers to transition into our entire fleet to renewable fuels.
Right.
Mike and Jim, will our passengers notice any difference with the new fuel?
I don't think
Not
you'll
at all?
notice any difference unless
The
you
California
see it.
Air will.
Yeah.
It'll be a big reduction in
Yeah.
greenhouse gases. So
And it's also a little cleaner on the criteria pollutants like, the sulfur, nitrous oxides, those kind of
So
things.
it's not going to smell any different.
Nope. It won't smell like French
Or
fries.
feel any different?
No, it won't
it's,
feel.
it's not going to affect. It's not going to change the ride quality.
No.
Okay.
No, not from the testing we've had, and it shouldn't because it meets the fuel standard.
yep.
And chemically, at least, is close enough. So moving down, we have additional rolling stock. Caltrans is the owner of most of the rolling stock that we use in our system, except for those few Amtrak cars. In Southern California, it's a little different. But we share our fleet with the San Joaquins, and that fleet is due to get some new cars entered into it, the single-level cars, the Seaman cars that are going to go to the San Joaquins in time, and thus that will free up some bi-level equipment, and meaning we'll have more capacity on our trains to add more cars to the trains. So that just needs to happen. And we had that unfortunate thing a couple of years ago. They were all set to build them, and they didn't make their crash tests. So all the trickle-down effect of that is we should have had new cars coming online about this time this year, but when things like that don't work out, everybody sort of pays the price for it. So we're trying to get more equipment as fast and quickly as we can, but it has to go through a process of building them and having a industry in the United States here that's ready to deliver on those.
Right. Yep. And the timing on that single level cars is 2021 is the estimate.
Yep.
For that rollout. But it won't be for the Capital Quarter route.
Yeah.
It'll be for the San Joaquin route.
But that will free up
yes.
cars for us, and then there is a plan to get more bi-level equipment also, so we're working on that. We're really, with the state right now, really looking at trying to get more rolling stock, because this is just the start of the need. It's getting, as you all know, it's getting busy out there with the seats.
It's a good thing.
It is. The next thing that's really exciting is the California Integrated Travel Program. This is a multi-agency initiative to research and development integrated travel, selling one ticket across multiple mobility modes, the rail, the bus. We're working with leadership at the state level to implement that. It's complicated, but if it's done right, it's really not all that complicated. So that app that would be available from a provider like Masabi or Movell or something like that, maybe in the future we'll have like a certified stamp, and then that means that it follows the rules of selling tickets across different modes and letting you plan that trip as well, and then purchasing it. So it's an exciting development. It's a work in progress. Over this next year, we're going to be making some inroads with the state partners working on that.
And what that means for us, Capital Quarter passengers, is that we can be a bit more flexible in the fares that we set. So, for lower peak trains, we might be able to lower fares for them and adjust our demand accordingly.
And also make fares, purchasing fares a lot easier as well.
Yeah, and lower cost.
Yep.
Yeah.
The next thing that we're working on that you'll see over time is a project that Shirley's leading, the passenger information display. Do you want to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about that?
so passenger information display system is, collectively we just call it PIDS. It's easier. But that's the train arrival information signage that you would see at stations. And the ones that we have out there right now were installed in the early 2000s, and they are coming to end of life. And what we plan on doing with the San Joaquin's Joint Powers Authority as well as ACE is that we are procuring a new PID system that will provide new signs as well as upgrade the software that goes behind it, develop an app that allows passengers to track their trains in real time as well as get train arrival information on their phones in addition to the station electronic signs.
So that's a busy year ahead for you.
Yes.
Well, other things we're working on, are service expansions. And I think I peeked over here. We have a few questions about expanding service to Roseville. That is still on. That project is in design. It's the Sacramento to Roseville third track. We have gotten through 10% design. We're moving into 25% design. All these are sort of important milestones. And then when we implement phase one, we're going to be at a point. There you go, Mike. Yeah, mute that. We're going to be able to add 2 more round trips up to Roseville. And then we're already starting plans to add the second batch, or the second phase, which will get us all the way up to 10 round trips up to Roseville. So it's kind of in a +2 and a +7, because we have the existing one. That will get us up to 10. So we're working diligently with partners to deliver that project. So we're working really from the north to the south. The phase one ends a little bit before Watt Avenue, starting up in Roseville. And then the second phase will be Watt Avenue all the way into the Sacramento Valley Station. And one of the things we have to work on is they're trying to widen Business 80 or State Route 51, and we have rail bridges that are going to go across that. So we're working to coordinate how big a rail bridge to make and how wide that's all going to be and how to get that all funded. So that is definitely ongoing and will be so for the next couple of years. The other project we're working on is to expand service, or eventually expand service between Oakland and San Jose. And one of the first things we're going to be doing here, we got some awards of state money to shift our service. Right now, for those of you who go south of Oakland and are heading down to Silicon Valley, you go up kind of against the hillside and you make a big turn to get into Fremont, and then you turn again in Newark and you head south. What we're going to be planning to do is, instead of going both sides of that triangle, we're going to take a direct route to south of the Coliseum and head straight down what's called the Coast Subdivision. In the Coast Subdivision, we're looking to put a station roughly in the Ardenwood Park and Ride area. It's right by Highway 84. And that route will save us travel time, and we can also still capture the market that was using the Fremont and the Hayward station can instead go to the Ardenwood station. So that's what we're funded for and looking at, and Shirley's busy.
Yes.
Once again, leading that.
We are definitely in the procurement stage for that right now, and we hope to get the project started very soon this year, probably next month or in March. Another benefit that would come from the reroute is that we would be able to create a better connection for passengers who are coming in or going to the peninsula. Right now, it's fairly difficult to make that connection, but once we have that new station at the Ardenwood area, that allows a lot more bus and shuttle activity to connect directly to rail service.
Yep, it'll be buses above, rail below, up and down.
So we have some fans of service to Salinas. Can someone address that?
Yes, I can address that. So we've been trying to work with TAMC to get a service down to Salinas for some time. They've been working with Caltrans and with CCJPA to get more service down to Salinas. Luckily, there's an initial bit of funding to get the plan in place to do that from the state. However, until we can get more trains to San Jose, we don't have enough trains in our rotations between Oakland and San Jose to deliver more service to Salinas. So kind of the best bet right now is really to wait. Maybe Caltrain can do it, or we are a couple years at least away from getting more trains to San Jose. And we looked at, like, if you were going to meet the trains that start in San Jose, which serve the rest of the market, you'd have to be leaving Salinas at like 3:15 in the morning or something like that. So the schedule didn't quite work, and it also was it was going to be a very long day, maybe 2 days in one if you were coming up to Salinas to work at Silicon Valley. So we can't quite do that yet, but it's definitely on our radar screen, and we're working with TAMC, and TAMC is working with the state. We're all looking at those opportunities to grow service. Any other questions related to expansion?
Well, someone asked about Alameda, but I think you covered that with the reroute. So
okay.
yeah, I think we're good for
Well, I'll
that.
move into train equipment. The diner cars that were built in 1995-96 are going to get a bit of a rehab in terms of the dining car. The upper level galley will be updated with new technology standards to make sure the lighting and the food storage units kind of meet today's needs. We're also going to be replacing the event recorders. These are like the black boxes that are going to be made more compatible with the positive train control system. We're looking on those 6000 series cars. Those are the cars that are kind of a little more narrow in the aisle, to replace existing seats on the 6000 series Surfliner, and we're going to be getting your input on that kind of design. We're also going to be venting the 8800 series car, venting the bathroom odors in a different, better way.
Yep.
So we won't hopefully hear those complaints as much.
So down and out.
Yep. And then we're going to be replacing the incandescent lights with LED lights. So that's some of the stuff you will see, not smell, or not see happening over the coming years. And the marketing program, do you want me to go over that, or that's your wheelhouse?
Can we back up for a second? Because someone on Instagram was commenting about the directional signs on the locomotives and that they're very hard to read and they're difficult. Now, the ones on the new locomotives are great, but so I don't know what the plans are. If you can talk about the plans for existing ones.
Yeah, some of those are really old signs that are on those trains, and sometimes they get blasted out and are maybe not even functional, so they're getting changed out. We are working on a thing called onboard information systems, and that's on the train that generally on the train that's heading up to Auburn, back and forth. That's kind of a captured fleet, so we're testing on that. That will definitely replace those signs. But right now, when we have a sign that really goes bad, this is kind of the eBay solution. There's one place we can go with technology that old to get them fixed and readable again. So we're taking advantage of that when we can, when we need to. But if OBIS comes along and it's in testing right now, it would offer new signs pointing to the platform from the train and improve everything. So with that, we can move into marketing if you want. Do you want to read the cheat sheet, or do you want me to run through it?
I don't have to read the cheat
All right.
sheet.
Oh, you know it. Okay.
I do that every day. So, no, there was an interesting comment, actually, that Randall on Facebook made. He said public, and I think this kind of goes into marketing, but he said public transit ridership is down for most organizations throughout the country. Why do you think the Capital Corridor route is bucking that trend and seeing such growth? And you're right. We've been really fortunate. We've seen steady increases in ridership over the past few years. We think part of that has to do with the fact that there's so many people moving from the San Francisco Bay Area east to Sacramento and even farther east. We also hope, we do have a really solid marketing program here, and that may have something to do with it, and we'll say it's all that. No, but I think a lot of it does have to do with that sort of shift to Sacramento, but I don't know if you have anything to add, and then I can talk a little bit about
I think it's the amenities on the train. You can be productive, you can be social, you can take a nap. You shouldn't be doing that when you're driving, so that all helps. Certainly the land use, where the jobs are predominantly and where the housing costs are less, that drives it. But overall, I think it's also the highway congestion that if you've driven a little bit, you get your sanity back for the ticket on the train, and it's a little bit more relaxing. So I think that, it's not a little bit, it's a lot more relaxing. I hate driving that section. So I think that all kind of plays in, and the fact that people are having more mobility options, be that scooters or bike share on either end really helps out. So everybody's kind of figuring it out, and like Cal ITP should make that even easier, make it easier to purchase and plan that trip. And kind of once you start, you're kind of like, oh, I feel better quality of life. So that must be playing into it.
Yeah, and getting to marketing and communications, there's really kind of two goals for that. One is obviously, getting people to ride the train, particularly during the times when we have empty seats, whether that's during the weekend or during a weekday midweek. So, we're always looking at opportunities to offer different types of fares, whether it be the Take 5, which is really popular for weekends and holiday Mondays. Somebody asked about our senior midweek fare, which is 50% off on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And rest assured, we will be bringing that back in the spring, so stay tuned and check our website for that. We're also looking at more offers for single travelers. We have Friends and Family and Take 5, which is really great for small groups, people who are traveling together. But we just definitely want to look at other types of fare offers. And I do think that ticket integration is going to really help us be more nimble and more flexible with the types of fares that we offer. So that's one area that we'll just continue to work on, and it's obviously been successful so far. The communications piece of it, though, is another really important thing that we do in marketing and communications, and a lot of people have asked, and I think someone here wanted to know about whether we were planning to reinstate the telephone information center on the weekends. So this is, how people are getting information about service and delays and things like that. The reason why we did that, the short answer to that, is that we weren't getting a lot of calls. That said, we have been looking at ways, and you'll see more coming up really soon, looking at ways to provide information on the weekends, particularly on Twitter. We're also looking at service alerts right now. We have service alerts on weekdays. We also, and that's from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., we have those. We recently expanded the Twitter service alerts from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. as well. Before, it was only from 9 to 5. And we're just looking at kind of filling in those gaps there. And obviously the PID signs play a part. So there's a lot of components of our passenger communications and how we get information out to people. So we're just looking at ways to really fill in the gaps and be as efficient as possible and get people the information they need. So yeah, I think that covers it. The one other area I would say is there are some stations, and particularly Oakland Coliseum and San Jose, where we've had some complaints just about directional signs. So we're going to be working to improve those directional signs so people can actually find the train and get where they need to go.
Answering your phone.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, 'cause this is not the time to have a phone
right
call.
Now.
Yeah.
It's an 800 number, though.
Even better.
Yeah, so I think that covers marketing and communications.
Yeah.
I'll see if there's any other questions
I think we are
coming in.
through this sheet, and now it's really time to open up for questions.
Yeah, we have a few. Have you ever considered business class?
We have. The answer is yes. We have considered business class, but for reasons of the complications associated with paying for it and supporting it and ensuring that you get the quality experience you're supposed to get with business class, we have not implemented it as of yet. And it's getting harder and harder to implement it without the sort of capacity that we have on the train. So it will probably remain on the table, but I can't see it happening over the course of this next 2 business
until we get our
years.
Fleet of the Future or something like that, as far as more cars we can entertain that.
They're doing it down in L.A.
Yes.
And it's doing well, but they've had some more time and experience with it, and we've been a little more just sort of sit where you can approach.
Okay. And I know we've had several comments just about cleanliness of the stations and all the stations needing a station agent and more cops around for more cleaning, more safety and security. So I know you addressed that, but...
Yeah, we're working with Amtrak. We're going to be increasing security for Oakland Coliseum and Richmond stations. There'll be like roving security for those stations. We're also working with the city to increase the lighting for Oakland Coliseum station. They're in the parking lot areas, things like that.
Yeah, what I think would be helpful for some of our people tuning in here is maybe just for you to explain stations and who owns them. And, a lot of people assume that Capital Corridor owns the station and, we can't. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I know it's a little
Sure.
complicated, but
So the stations are primarily owned by the cities and municipalities where the station is located. The platform itself is owned by Union Pacific Railroad. Amtrak leases the platforms. They maintain them as far as the security cameras, lighting, cleanliness of the stations. That's all in the wheelhouse of Amtrak to perform those, and they contract it out to a third party for those services. And so the station parking is either owned by the city. So Oakland Coliseum, for example, the city of Oakland maintains and owns that parking area. And so we partner with them when there's any needs arise as far as vegetation removal, garbage removal, things like that. We work with the cities for each of the stations. BART's a little different. BART at the Richmond station, they have their BART parking. There's a BART section of Richmond, and there's also a City of Richmond section of Richmond stations. So it gets kind of complicated on some of these stations, who owns what. But basically, Amtrak maintains the platforms, and then the cities or BART has the parking areas.
right. So if someone feels that a station, like someone here said, we don't go to Antioch, that's the San Joaquin,
Correct.
but the Antioch train station needs an upgrade. What should we tell that person?
So they can reach out. They can
to
reach
the
out.
city?
They can reach out to either the city if it's in the parking areas. So the city of Antioch, I would talk to their engineers or the city folks on that.
Okay.
Yeah, you can also reach out to us, but it would be good to do both.
Yep.
So that we both know that, whatever is going on at any city in a parking lot or other incidences. It's good for all parties to understand the full experience of getting to the train, getting from the train.
Okay. We have a couple of big questions for you,
Okay.
Jim. So, back to Sac Roseville. How long until 10 trains a day to Roseville?
Ooh.
Can you
Well,
take your little crystal ball out? And
I think it's probably going to be 2024 for the first phase. So that is a huge, big bridge building project. We're probably looking at like 2027. It all depends when we get funding and get things ordered. So it's a kind of a sigh. Sorry, but it is very difficult to work in a right of way that you don't own, and you have to meet standards and safety standards and make sure the design is optimized for allowing freight operations, but also safe passenger operations. And that all takes time. There's pipelines in there, so it'll be a while. Sorry to say.
Okay. Well, we're getting, it's now almost 12:45. I think we're getting ready to finish up here. I did want to just bring up, this is sort of a last big question, and again, it's not really something in the next 2 years, but someone is talking about, if the long distance trains were threatened, like the Coast Starlight, would there be an opportunity for the Capital Corridor and the Surfliner and some of the intercity routes to kind of jump in and support those corridors? I don't know, again, if you can take your crystal ball out and look, and if ITP, kind of the integrated travel.
Well, we have there's sort of a DNA thing there. The DNA of Capital Corridor is to run on the Capital Corridor route, and we're administratively set up to fund and do that kind of a service. If there were an interest at the legislator's level to try to pull something off like that, or try to work across states, if Amtrak was pulling that out, I guess that could be done that way. We have to stay in our lane, and our lane is, on our tracks is really to work on the Capital Corridor service and not to sort of overreach into something more. We can be aware of it. We can be part of a team that considers it if we're asked to consider it, but we're not going to be leading, saving trains that the Amtrak would be making a business decision on. It would be really more of a partnership approach is how I can imagine it.
Okay. So someone asked, now a totally different question, someone asked about discounted BART tickets, and just wanted to emphasize that we used to sell BART tickets, discounted BART tickets, in the cafe car of the trains. We don't any longer. You can purchase a Clipper card. It's preloaded with right now with $11 of value, and you can purchase it for $11, which doesn't sound like there's a discount. However, if you are a new Clipper, if it's a new card for you, we do not charge the $3 new card fee. So there is a little bit of a discount there. Any discounted BART tickets actually have to be purchased sort of as a discounted BART ticket onto a Clipper card. So so you'd have to actually go to the BART website and look to see what kind of ticket options they have. But otherwise, if you're just putting cash on the Clipper card, there isn't a discount per se. So just wanted to clarify that. When did that change, Mike? That changed like over a year ago.
Yes, and also you cannot reload on the train.
Right, you can't. We don't have the ability. We don't have the ability to actually reload money. So. So that answers that question. Well, I think we probably should finish up here. We've gone over everything. We got a lot of people to participate in this. And we really, really thank you. Definitely a lot. I know. This was good. I think we'll do it again next year.
Much better than the evening meeting.
Yeah.
Where you and Joel would hang out and wait. Nobody's here.
So just to tell you again, we will be rebroadcasting this video, so you'll have a chance to see it. You'll have a chance to make comments. Any comments that we did not address or any questions we didn't answer during today, we'll be taking all of this. We'll be putting it into a document that sort of takes all of the questions and supplies answers. That's all going to be available on the website. Again, it's capitalcorridor.org. You can see the full draft business plan there, as well as how you can make comments, and also a schedule of our onboard workshops if you wish to hear all this again and meet with Jim and Shirley and Mike and whoever happens to be doing it. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.